Hello, and welcome to session 6. That's not right. Hello, and welcome again to Ministry to Unsaintly Saints workshop, and we're ready for session 6 this time. Wait, I could do better. Hello, this is Roger Niemeyer again, and welcome to the workshop Ministry to Unsaintly Saints. We're ready for session 6. I did that on purpose. Because guess what we're doing this time? Number 7 in the list of 10 typical difficult behaviors, the perfectionist. I mentioned before I came, my mom was to a good extent a perfectionist, and so I had that influence in my life growing up. To the point where, when I was younger especially, it could well drive me crazy and other people around me crazy. I took piano lessons for most of my childhood, starting at second grade age, all the way up through my senior year of high school. We're talking about, other than vacations and time away, basically one piano lesson every week for those 10 years. It was classical pianist, and I was pretty good at it. I could sight read just about anything. Learned to play by ear more when I became a Christian, got into church ministry. Played keyboard and accordion, and also played the French horn in school and that for the band for a few years. The piano, pardon me, was my main thing. And I had to practice. My mom's verdict on it was that I had to practice an hour a day, with the exception of Sunday. I don't remember Saturday. I probably had to practice an hour Saturday. So that's 10 years of practicing piano an hour a day. Needless to say, I got fairly proficient at it. I didn't really want to go into it as a career as far as being a concert pianist or anything like that. I do it mostly for my own enjoyment, but I have played for church a few times. Led worship, and with music and that. But the funny thing about it was practicing the piano. I would go over and over, especially if I had a hard time getting a particular line of music. I could get frustrated because I couldn't do it perfectly. And of course, perfectionists have an expectation on themselves to do it perfect, like right away. The idea of practicing and gaining a skill in that, at least for the ultra-perfectionist, there's an expectation we put on ourselves that we should be good at this with just a lesson or two. So that was agonizing. Perfectionists go through a lot of self-hidden agony. But as with anything, whatever we have on the inside tends to show up on the outside, and we carry it into our relationships, of course. So let's look at the perfectionist. This is one that I do identify with. Again, over the last 20 years or so, by the grace of God, I've been able to grow in this area and not be so hard on myself. But it's still a tendency I have to really watch out for and can get caught up in. Excuse me. Let's look at the characteristics of a perfectionist. Number 1, their motto is, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. But the perfectionist tends to take that to the max. And a perfectionist gets stuck if they feel they don't know the right thing to do. If they're not sure, and I still wrestle with this sometimes, if I don't see what seems to me to be the clear right way to handle this problem or do this program or project, I get stuck. And perfectionists can get stuck because doing it the right way is better than, you just don't do it at all if you can't do it the right way. Maybe needs more information, whatever the issue is. Getting it right is the all-important thing. Number 3, tends often to come across as very negative, seeing the faults in everything and everyone. And that's because they're perfectionists. And so a perfectionist has an amazing eye for detail. They're great people to have on your ministry team because they will see things that other people don't see, and they're usually right about it too. Um, the problem is they can get stuck there, and they can get everyone else stuck. They have an uncanny wet blanket effect on others with their negativity, killing ideas. Well, that'll never work. Why don't you understand? That can't work because of this, and this. They're not always right. Again, that's something that we're coming to that person very soon here in the next one, the know-it-all. Perfectionists are not always right, but it's their perception of what they believe is right in the particular scenario. That's what gets them stuck. So part of working with a perfectionist will sometimes be showing them what really is right. What's the reasons for this difficult behavior? Well, the perfectionists, who can be kind of a bump on the log too, they don't purposely try to be this way. Their bitter negativity is often the result of past disappointments. They really do believe things are as hopeless as they say. Number two, they're so keyed into seeing the faults in things and people, they can't get past it to be a problem solver. So they just get stuck, They may have a fear of progressing lest the task or plan be imperfect and result in just another disappointment, like number one says, the kind of disappointments they've had in the past. There's a tremendous fear of failure with a perfectionist. Again, the perfectionist can be because they grew up in a home with perfectionist parents with exceedingly high, unreasonable standards. Excuse me. This is really true with fathers and American fathers. We are in a society where success is enthroned, and I can remember growing up. My dad, education has taken a turn from what it used to be. It used to be it didn't matter in my day. It didn't matter what your IQ or mental capacity was. The belief was every student could be an A student if they really tried. And any subject didn't matter. It took years for educational psychology to catch up and say, hey, wait a minute. We're left brain, right brain, all these different things we're learning about how our brains work and realizing that not everyone is going to be an A student in science. Not everyone is going to get math. Not everyone is going to get grammar and excel in it. It's sad because a lot of kids fell through the cracks who they weren't smart in the right areas. They weren't gifted in in the right intelligence. One thing I do at the treatment center, used to do, I did a course on the eight smarts, a little short thing, personal assessment kind of tool. But the great thing about it is there's 8 different areas that people can excel in. And the realization was that we're not all going to have the same kind of smarts. There's an artistic smart. Some people can't draw a straight line. Some people couldn't be artistic if they, with lessons. But other people, it comes naturally. Some people, math is nothing. Makes complete logical sense to them. But that's because they have logic smart, Other people have kinetic smart. As far as body smart, they are very agile. They make the great athlete, the surgeon, the pianist. And there's a music smart. Some people you say, hey, give me middle C. They go, They know exactly where middle C is. They know tones. It just ticks with them. Other people can't carry a tune in a bucket. So that was a great realization in education, although I don't know that it's still being used rightly in a lot of things. We realize that kids learn differently. They don't all learn the same, and they're not all wired the same. So the public schoolhouse psychology was that everyone should be able to be perfect in everything is just a fallacy. But the perfectionist can fall into that trap and end up beating himself up and being disappointed in himself and others because things don't all go perfectly. Well, one of the ways this shows up for me has been driving on the highway. I let it get to me so easily, too often. That's kind of my later lessons here in life with the Lord have been driving on the interstate highway. um, just letting it frustrate me how other drivers don't drive perfectly. Oh, that guy didn't use his signal, and it's so easy. And then I end up miserable, all negative, all bound up, and stressing out behind the wheel because I'm judging and seeing how other people are driving so poorly or imperfectly. And then that little still small voice will whisper in my mind and heart and say, Roger, Roger, Roger. You really expect people to drive perfectly? No. You know what a phrase is that God has brought to my mind that helps me with this particular thing? And I'm sorry to harp on this one, but it hits home. Sinners do what sinners do. That's a phrase that's become endeared to my thinking because it helps me with my unrealistic expectations that come from perfectionism. And that's what happens with perfectionists. We tend to project unrealistic expectations on others that we even have on ourselves. And chances are we came from a home where there were a lot of unrealistic expectations projected on us. Our culture does, like I started to say a while ago. Our American culture tends to do that. There's this high expectation on report cards and grades and being good at about anything. Um, um, Athletic fathers tend to force their kids into sports. They can't understand why their kid doesn't want to play ball like dad did. Uh, so perfectionism is it's a very destructive thing, both to the individual and then those that the person tends to project that on. And it causes a lot of disappointments and regrets. Now, if I have a lot of regrets and disappointments about myself, I produce this great fear of failure. So it's as you can tell, I'm familiar with this one. It's very devastating to be caught in this. But how do we as ministers help others who are caught in this? How do we get past this behavior in a group or when somebody's expressing difficult behavior coming from this perfectionist thing? Well, let's look at ways to cope. Number one, your goal is to move this person from fault finding to problem solving. Remember, that was one of our general ways to neutralize, is get people to quit fault finding. Don't focus on people. Focus on the objective stuff, the problem, the issue. You're not doing this right. I don't think you're doing about this right. Well, okay, let's come back to the problem then. So, perfectionist, what's your suggestion then? This person can, we kind of looked at this before, how perfectionists can be in some of these other ones. They can get stuck, and can't think past get to solving because we're still fault finding. Number two, don't try to convince them things aren't as bad as they think they are or could be worse. This only motivates them to more intently prove to you just how bad it all is. So arguing about this isn't going to help. Number three, if their negativity starts to overwhelm you, put your hand gently on their shoulder, look them in the eye, and sincerely say, "Thank you for the wonderful work you're doing." It'll probably confuse him. Maybe stop him. That's not what they're expecting. Thank you for these insights you've shared. And you connect with them. Put your hand on their shoulder, and by doing that, I'm pulling them back towards problem solving. I'm complimenting them, but I'm trying to throw a wedge here, and where that person is stuck because of their perfectionism and just complaining and negativity, fault finding. Number four, use them. Put their ability to a good use. Run everything by them to find problems. They'll love it because they will spot. They have that eye for details, and they will spot some things. So put them to use. It's a good thing. Number five, break down negative generalizations. Oh, this whole program's messed up. It won't work. Yeah, that's a generalization. No, the whole program is messed up. But maybe what's really going on is they're seeing an aspect of it, a part of it, a detail that in their mind is not being done the way it should. So I want to find out what that is, and not just get stuck with generalizations. Oh, how this will never work, and it's a mess and it's broken. So backtrack and clarify. Go back and backtrack from the generalization. And say, so what part of this? Where do you see some problems here, Bill? Get them to specify things, clarify. Just what is what is the imperfections they're seeing? Get specific. Number 6 says, and don't hurry them. They'll drag even more. Give them time to think and report back. Okay? If you try to push this past them, they're stuck. You're not going to unstick them by trying to force them ahead. And again, get some use out of this. Maybe there is something wrong. Maybe there is something that could be better. So, use their gift of perfectionism to, backtrack, find out what's wrong, but don't hurry them. Number 7, use exaggerated agreement to get a polar response, the opposite of what they said. Oh, this is horrible. This whole program's no good. Well, you're right. It's atrocious. It's let's scrap it. It's ridiculous. And then, well, no, I'm not saying that. See, now I'm getting the opposite response of what they had said earlier. So I'm exaggerating their complaint, their negativity to an absurd level, and chances are they will respond. They won't agree with that. They'll say, well, no, it's not. I think we can fix this. Here's what I see that's wrong. See, that's what I'm trying to do. Sometimes I can use an exaggerate on their negativity, their complaint, in order to get them to disagree with it. Now I've got them going in the right direction. Number 8, acknowledge their good intentions, their eye for detail, their high standard, their willingness to speak up. Wow, thank you, Bill, for pointing that out and seeing that. I wouldn't have seen that. Thanks for pointing that out. That's really helpful. And then get back to solving the problem, the issue, moving it on. So that's the perfectionist. A lot of stuff there. A lot of variety of things that we're trying to do to get this person out of fault finding and stuck in a negative mentality because things aren't perfect. But remember, I want to do whatever it takes to move this person towards problem solving in the group that he's part of, and to make use of this quote unquote ability that he has to see things that are wrong, to see the details. Excuse me. Let's flip the page and look at the next one, number 8, the know-it-all. Okay, the know-it-all. Those of you back in your Bullwinkle days, if you're that old as I am, and remember the Bullwinkle show, and now they have a new animated movie out about Mr. Peabody and Sherman. And Peabody was a very smart dog who would travel through time and history and knew about everything and so on. And Sherman was his sidekick, although often, sometimes Mr. Peabody's know-it-all attitude will get him in trouble. But let's take a look at the know-it-all. Now, I want to show you something before we do. If you flip the page to number 9, you'll see the next character, difficult behavior, is the fake know-it-all. These two are both worth really looking at because they're similar, but there's a very distinguishable difference. So let's go back to number 8, the know-it-all. Characteristics of a know-it-all. They actually know what they're talking about. They do know a lot. These guys have done their homework. They're experts in certain areas. They know what they're talking about. They really do. So you're not going to, if this person is exhibiting difficult behavior because they are a know-it-all, prideful behavior and that sort of thing, you're not going to get this guy on an intellectual level, on a knowledge level, to back down. They do know what they're doing. Number 2, they're highly trained. They're smart, and they know it. 3, they're very competent, highly assertive. They can be very outspoken because they have such a confidence in their knowledge. The reason why this is a difficult behavior is because of the way they're manifesting their know-it-all, attitude. Their intent is get it done in the way they believe is best. So you can see how this can overlap with a perfectionist or combine kind of. And they can be controlling, low tolerance for being corrected. That so you can see one of the issues here can be pride. We know this, right? That well-educated people are always susceptible to pride. It's always waiting right there at the door. Because I do have understanding, because I've learned some things, know some things, real easy to get prideful about that. And that's what we're looking at here with the know-it-all. It's good to know things. It's good to be educated. It's good to learn. God gave us the capacity to do that and the desire to do that. And a God who's all-knowing, omniscient, and wise, it shouldn't surprise us that we have a hunger and desire and drive for that. But in a negative way, this person doesn't like correction, doesn't like contradiction. Reasons for difficult behavior, number 1, this is where pride comes from. They're finding their sense of self-esteem in being right. For whatever reasons, growing up or somewhere in there, because they didn't have the right means of self-esteem, being loved, being valued by parents or whatever. I've seen this with intellectual parents with their kids. Just because their parents are intellectual and talk about high-minded kind of things around the dinner table and all the time. Now, their kids may have a capacity for that by the way God wired them, but also it's interesting how, they either come out the same or rebel against that and go in a different direction. But anyway, the sad thing is a person can find their self-esteem in being knowledgeable, being educated, being smart, and comes with that as a desire to always be right. That's where the pride factor comes in. I've always got to be right because I know everything. I know what I'm talking about, man. I'm right. To be wrong is exceedingly humiliating. So you can tell already one of the ways to cope with this, when this person is taking control of the group because they know everything, and yet you sense it's not going in the right way, or they're stifling everyone else from being able to share and have input in the ministry group or whatever you're doing, the committee meeting. If you try to humiliate them or say something in such a way that for them is humiliating, you're not going to get anywhere. Here's the thing. You can benefit from this person because they are an expert. They do know what they're talking about, and we want to benefit from that. But the pride factor is what we're going to have to deal with. That's the difficult behavior. For some reason, they feel they should know everything. And again, it's probably a lot to do with the way they grew up in their environment that made them feel like they've got being smart is what makes you valuable. Number 2, they believe their destiny and duty is to dominate, manipulate, and control. After all, they alone know what's right. Knowledge is power. That'll be their slogan. Knowledge is power. And I've heard people quote that quite frequently. You probably have too. How do we deal with this behavior? This is a tough one. Number 1, never tell them you're just wrong. When we say that phrase anyway, as soon as I say you are wrong about this, I've personalized it, haven't I? I've made it a personal attack. I'm saying you as a person are wrong, rather than this idea. I don't agree with this idea. Now, this person particularly, you're going to have to focus on the objective, not the subjective. Because he's getting his self-esteem from feeling right, being smart, knowledgeable, if your statements sound like a personal attack, you're actually taking a sledgehammer and trying to knock out the foundation of his self-worth, and that is that he's smart and knowledgeable. They don't want to attack him as a person. By focusing on objective ideas, analyzing, considering, embellishing ideas, he's going to be more likely to be open to that than if somehow you make a connection between his idea and who he is as a person. You're wrong. The war is on if you do that. Number two, listen to them. Then do your homework and research. Know your stuff. If you feel like what he shared or that is wrong or is not healthy or is not going to make this ministry or group or project go in the right direction, take notes, listen, go home, check it all out, get on Google, and research. Because if you're going to come together again and you want the group to consider different ideas about what that person has shared, you're going to have to know what you're talking about. You can't just say, that doesn't sound right to me. Because immediately say, oh, why is that? So if it's arguing about a scripture or a biblical principle, you're going to have to do your Bible homework. Okay? Now again, as you're going to see in a minute here as we look at these others, you're not going to deal with this difficult behavior by out-arguing them with 20 books sitting on the table with cross-references. Okay? Well, let's go on. Number three, affirm them instead of contradicting or confronting. Affirm their knowledge. Do you remember when we talked about some general principles to neutralize difficult behavior? One of them was use the word and, not the word but. This really applies here. Right? You want to affirm what they've shared in their knowledge. Wow, Sam, that's really insightful. Thank you for that. That really makes sense. And I found that, see, I don't want to affirm him and then say, but I found this article. I studied scriptures last night, and because then the argument's on, and it's just a debate between knowledge. So I want to affirm what they've shared. I want to affirm their knowledge, because that's important to them. Again, their self-esteem is based on that. So I'm not going to go against that, because you're not going to fix. Remember, we can't fix people. That's not what we're trying to do here. I'm not trying to fix them in one meeting. It won't work. So if this is his basis of self-esteem, it's his basis of self-esteem. It's not healthy, it's not right, but you're not going to fix it. So don't try to. It won't work. So you got to play. Jesus ministered to people where they were at. He didn't leave them where they were at. He tried to bring them towards God's truths and principles and life ways and character. But you've got to start where people are at. If you attack where they're at, it won't work. You won't get anywhere. You've got to start where they're at. In a sense, you've got to humor them, in a healthy way. We're not talking about playing games here. That's not the intent. The intent is to bring them to truth. But you always got to start where people are at. Therefore, we affirm at least the good aspects of where they're at. Boy, you really know your stuff, Sam. You really know your stuff. And this idea you shared, Sam, that's really thought-provoking. I never really thought of that. There's some good stuff there. And I read an article last night. But don't use but. Number 4, then present your research findings briefly, clearly, and concisely. Sam, I went home last night after what you shared. That just got me excited. And I got online. I found this article by Ravenhill, and I now I'm adding to, and we're talking about ideas, not people. I'm not attacking him. I'm not using but. I'm not putting him down. But I'm looking at the idea he shared and affirming that idea and adding to it if I feel that's necessary. In this ministry group here at the NACM, this is an important principle, isn't it? If you've entered into discussion groups in the NACM or the generation groups for MP, There's good ways to have conversation on this website, and there's not so good ways. You learn real quick if you if your response in discussion starts with a but, you just told that person that everything they shared is wrong. They're illogical. They don't think straight. They don't know what they're talking about. Uh, you learn to affirm. You learn to keep focused on ideas. We can discuss ideas, but as soon as you say things like, "Well, you're really wrong about this," I don't. And there's been people who've done that. I've probably done it myself. When I first started, realized, especially when you get a response from someone who says, "Oh yeah, well, you need to go back to Bible school, buddy." We've had interesting conflicts like that break out on the discussion forum because we end up even if we didn't intend it, the words we choose are important, guys. The words we choose are so important because we can either come across as sounding like we're attacking a person rather than discussing an idea. And with this guy, to know it all is extremely important. So, number 5, acknowledge their brilliance. Stroke, stroke. And that's okay. We need stroking. We need to stroke people. We need to affirm people for the good stuff. Even if we discern and detect that there's bad stuff or it's the motivations behind it are not good. Uh, but I don't just stay there. I don't acknowledge their brilliance. I backtrack, rehearse what they said. Do you remember, Sam, when you said this statement, da 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 da? You know, isn't that what you said? See, I'm checking it with him. You remember when you said, yeah, yeah? Before introducing new information, doing all this very respectfully and sincerely without a hint of condensation. See, when I do condensation, condensation, if I condensate, I'm sweating. But if I do condensation or speak in that kind of tone, uh, it's over. It's just going to be a personal battle now of egos and pride and all that sort of thing. I've thwarted any progress spiritually in ministry as a group in the project at hand. So before you introduce information, acknowledge theirs and show how the ideas. Don't say I found or I think. I've learned to talk in ministry apologetically for the most part. I don't feel a need to assert that any kind of understanding or wisdom comes from me. It doesn't. What is it in James? All wisdom that's good and right comes from the Father above, the Father of lights. Comes from Him. I'm just learning wisdom and passing it on. Like one great theologian said, I'm one poor beggar showing another poor beggar where to find food. Never forgot that statement of that theologian. uh, it's not me that's getting wiser so that I can help God out. He needs my help to retain wisdom and pass it on. We're all on the same level. We're all in the same boat. So that's what I want to communicate and keep things on the ideas and focus on solving ideas and understandings and not let it get into a personal, mode. So number 6, I try to pick up on the know-it-all's expressions of doubt and desires and include them in your responses sincerely. Say them before he does. Let's just get to the point, since we don't have a lot of time here. So, I'm trying to pick up on why the know-it-all is upset or displaying difficult behavior. So I'm thinking, see what I'm doing? The know-it-all is feeling like, let's get to the point. This is getting bogged down. So I say it for him. Hey, let's get to the point here. Let's get back to solving the idea here. Let's deal with the ideas here. Since we don't have a lot of time here. And of course, the know-it-all then goes, oh, yeah, right, exactly. So I'm bridging here. I'm making some connection and so that, we can move this thing on and not be stuck. Number 7, once you've seemed to temporarily disarm his defenses, cautiously but quickly redirect towards your idea or information. Use softening words like maybe, perhaps, They're apologetic kind of words, and that's okay. This isn't, I'm not trying to build up a reputation here. I'm not trying to save face. Who cares about that? That's pride, you know. So I use words like, maybe this and this and this, or perhaps if we did, So I use phrases like, I was just wondering if, and what would happen if. See, I'm using plural nouns, we and us, instead of I and you. That's a neat little principle, little method there. I'm being inclusive and universal. What if we, you see, I'm trying to get away from here's what you think, here's what I think. You, facing off, conflict. Instead, what if I was wondering if we were to do this, or, so on. You get the idea. That's a really good principle. That's a really good method to make use of. Number 8, you have to think before you speak for this guy. You have to backtrack with sincerity and go back to statements that were made and backtrack in the conversation. Say, Sam, when you said da 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 da, I wrote it down, Sam. I want to make sure I got it right. Isn't that what you said? Yeah, that's what I said. you know. But I do it sincerely. I'm not doing it to challenge him. If I project an attitude of challenge, again, it's gone. It's lost. But I'm doing it sincerely. Like, I want to understand, Mr. Know-it-all. Mr. Know-it-all, I want you to help me understand. That's kind of the attitude I'm doing here. Because I realize this guy does know some things. He knows a lot. He may know more than me, and that's okay. We're not in competition here. See, I want to get that across. We are not competing. What we're trying to do is know more, get this kind of right as we can, and get some right understanding so we can progress. We can move ahead. So backtrack with sincerity. You have to dovetail everything with their doubts and desires, and you have to be indirect about new ideas. So you want to be humble, meek. Nothing's lost by being humble and meek. Sam, what do you think about this idea I have? I was thinking, here's what you said, and that got me to thinking uh, about this idea. What do you think of this idea? And then present the idea. What I'm basically saying is, you're an expert, so I'm posing this idea. I'd like to get your analysis of it, your feedback. How does that fit with this idea over here? And even be honest and say, you stated this, and I understand what you said there, but then I was reading these scriptures that said this. How do those two fit together? Can you help me understand that? See, instead of saying, well, you said this, but I know some verses that say this. There I am again. You're wrong. This is contrary, contradictory. It's not going to fly. All we're going to end up do is having a debate, a very heated, fighting debate. So I learned to appeal to Mr. Know-it-all. I make appeals. A great Bible teacher across the country taught me that one time, and it had some wonderful lessons about how to make an appeal to those in authority. Now, here's a guy, a know-it-all. He may not have an authoritative title, but he sees his self-esteem and a sense of authority because he knows a lot. So, with people in authority positions, there's a great wisdom, a godly wisdom, in learning how to make an appeal to those in authority. Because when I make an appeal, I'm showing respect for that person's authority, even though I'm trying to bring an idea that is maybe contradictory. Think of Daniel and the king's meat, when he and the other young men who were Jews and Hebrews and believed in God's laws, the dietary laws and so forth, and instead of eating the king's meat, it's so cool how Daniel and them make an appeal to the guy that was enforcing the king's edict of the diet that the young men were supposed to, the king's diet. Daniel just didn't say, we are Jews. We are taught not to eat those kind of foods. We will not do that. He didn't do that, did he? He made an appeal to the guy in authority. And by way of that person to the king. He suggested a project. He said, tell you what, for a few days, let us follow our diet, our Hebrew diet, and then at the end of that, you pick the people, your doctors, your judges, who will evaluate your young men as opposed to us young men as to our health from our two different diets. Would you go for that? What do you think about that? And the guy went for it, right? See, that was wise. Daniel made an appeal to someone in authority rather than coming across with a rebellious attitude. We're right. We're Jews. God's given us this diet. We worship the real God. This is a real diet. Your diet's defunct. It's wrong. You don't get anywhere with that. And then number 9, turn these guys into mentors. You know, with pride being there, this will just sound really good to them. Turn them into mentors. Acknowledge Mr. Know-it-all's expertise. Invite their help. You'll be less of a threat to them. Because they're used to people kind of getting offended at their kind of prideful, headiness. And you say, wow, you really know your stuff. Would you be willing to help us? Would you kind of be an advisor on this project? Consequently, more of your ideas will be heard with less effort on your part, less resistant on Mr. Know-it-alls. Pretty neat stuff, huh? When people are full of pride, you don't get anywhere by attacking that pride. Because the very nature of pride is to not want to be humbled. So if you try to humble them or humiliate them, you're not accomplishing anything. But if you know how to play off of it in a healthy way, there's more likely you'll get that person to lower their defenses, to lower their pride defense, and actually begin to communicate on a more humble human level. Okay, flip to page number 9, our third and last one of this session, and we'll do it in about 15 minutes here. Number 9 is the fake know-it-all. Now, just by the title, I'm sure you're already understanding the difference between this guy and the one we just did. Number 1, unlike the know-it-all, this one does not know what he's pretending to know. So the use of exaggeration and generalizations. This is the guy, he's a people pleaser too. He's worried about being accepted. And his deal is, if I appear to be knowledgeable like the guys in this group, they'll accept me. And he's really worried about that, right? So he puts on a pretense of, oh yeah, I know that stuff. Sure, I read the whole Bible too. I went to. I've met Christians in certain circles that will say things that they've done or known, or even activities they've done, and only to find out later they've actually never done that. But they felt compelled by this inner, the need behind the fault. They had an unmet need of acceptance or self-esteem, self-worth, and that's how they, for whatever reasons, have come to think that that's how they get it. Anyway, number 2, they're a chameleon. You know what a chameleon is? It's that lizard who can change its pigment, its coloration and its pigment depending on where it is. If it's sitting in green leaves, he can make himself turn green so you can't see him. If he's among brown branches and dirt, he can turn brown. That's a chameleon. Well, this guy's a chameleon. He wants to be like those around them and not left out of the conversation or whatever. So they can be very creative. They can be very inventive with information in order to feel like they belong. And there's the key word. They want to feel like they belong. And more likely, you remember that social worker's little sign? Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. This guy's fighting a battle deep within to be accepted, to even accept himself, let alone others to accept him. Matter of fact, that's the people pleaser thing. If other people accept me, I feel good about myself. That's so sad. I need to have a way to feel good about myself And if other people happen to like me, fine. If they don't, fine. You know? And that's where, of course, our faith comes in and our relationship with Christ. There's our real source of acceptance, a real source of unconditional love. So this person, though, is looking for that sense of being loved and accepted and belonging from others. Number 3, therefore, they tend to be assertive and push their way into conversations inappropriately because they're trying so hard to belong and be accepted. They overcompensate for it. They're the kind of person you're talking with, another minister friend or whatever, and or a couple Christians in the church, and they're kind of lingering around the outside. You kind of, in your peripheral vision, you see them, and they kind of inching closer, and they're nodding their head. They're starting to show, I'm listening, I'm part of this group, I belong here. And they may even kind of jut into the conversation with a statement or something on the topic because they're so badly wanting you to see them and welcome them and make them that they belong with this group. Number 4, because they like to seem like they know more than they really do, they tend to exaggerate and may sometimes offer some obviously strange and crazy and unreasonable elaborations. Yes, I have a Harvard. I went to Harvard too. Uh, you're from Washington State. You went to Cambridge, Dartmouth, and Harvard. Anyway, that kind of thing. After they're well known by those around them, here's the very sad part of this. When people begin to figure out what's going on with these guys, when they open their mouths, everyone groans, rolls their eyes, or tries to get away, makes excuses to walk away from them or whatever. That's very sad. And isn't that interesting? When we try to use unhealthy ways to get what we think we need, it always backfires somehow, some way. Here's a person wanting to be accepted, wanting to belong, but as people get to know that they're lying, they're embellishing truth, as people get to discern that and figure that out, they actually are turning away the very people that they hope will welcome and accept them. That's sad, isn't it? What are the reasons for this difficult behavior? Now, this person, guys and gals, you know what's tough about working with this person? Because our tendency is often going to be want to just get away from this person. The real tendency is going to want to be to kind of judge them and kind of wish they weren't even in the fellowship. But again, as ministers, we're called to this very thing, to help this person with this difficult behavior, to help get past this difficult behavior and help them address and see their real need and teach them how to meet that need in Christ rather than the unhealthy way they're going about it. And so what are the reasons possibly for this difficult behavior? Number 1, they have an insatiable craving for attention and appreciation. Maybe they didn't get that growing up. Well, I know I have to go back to the growing up things, but that's because a lot of these things are framed first in those early relationships in family. That's why fathering, parenting, mothering, family is so important in ministry. I'm so slow to realize this. I'm ashamed of myself, but I'm realizing more and more in my latter years of ministry that one of our primary focuses in ministry should be the family. Helping fathers especially. Mothers tend to do better, but not always. But we're living in a generation of fatherless families. We're living in a generation of fathers who really don't know how to be a father, don't know what to do. So anyway, they have a insatiable craving for attention and appreciation by seeming to be knowledgeable. They're kind of like the know-it-all. They think knowledge, being smart or appearing smart is the way to have some self-worth. Of course, that doesn't work well. Unfortunately, their push for recognition tends to get the very opposite of what they want, respect. Two, they are, again, here's a people pleaser kind of person again. They're very people oriented, much more than the task or ideas being discussed. They really don't care about the topic a whole lot, or the project, or the group they belong to. What they're concerned about is belonging, acceptance, from other people. They are more concerned about acceptance by others than acceptance of their ideas or opinions. Now, how do we help this person? How do we get around this difficult behavior and hopefully by God's grace help them address this need and change? Number one, ways to cope. You will need to have a lot of compassion for them. Look beyond the fault and see the need. A lot of compassion for this person. Again, that's the opposite of feeling offended by them or bothered by them, because they are, this kind of thing. You go, this guy's a liar. He's not telling the truth, and that's true. But again, I got to get past that difficult behavior and fault if I'm really going to help them. Oh, sorry, had a little interruption there. So number one, got to have a lot of compassion for them. Look beyond the fault. Lord, help me to minister to this person's need, and a lot of patience. A flat-out attack will only bring on more of the same in defense. How many times have you heard that with these different characters? A lot, but this one's going to take a lot of patience, because this person will try your patience. Number two, give them a little of what they want. It's okay. Give them some attention. That's what they're craving. Acknowledge their good intentions. You don't have to comment on some of their obvious exaggerations of that. Say something towards their contribution, even if it's just to say, wow, thank you for sharing that. and any truly helpful idea from what they have said, if any, try to bring that out. If there is some truth in what they've said, even if it's exaggerated, at least point out the part that was true and thank them for it. Say, hey, that's a good insight there, Bill. Do it enthusiastically. If you do it less than that, they're very, and because of this issue, they're very perceptive of flattery and false comfort, false assurance, whatever you want to call that. They're very keyed to that. Number three, clarify for specifics, but do it gently, with an innocent and curious look. You have 5 degrees from Harvard? That's wonderful. What are your degrees in? Question their generalizations. But again, I don't want to embarrass this person, because they will crush. This is the kind of person that when they're crushed, they could really do some self-harm. They may never show up again at the church. The problem with that is you may be relieved that you don't have their difficult behavior anymore, but it's also the person you may hear about later who took too many pills, did this or did that. So we want to be careful we don't crush this fragile soul. So I do want to question their generalizations, but in such a way that I'm not attacking them. I'm asking for clarity, more information. And I do it very innocently. I'm curious. Be careful not to embarrass them. This is the horror they worry about. You want to help this person become productive and down to earth, not crush them. One way that helps with this is number 4, use I language to be non-threatening. Now we used we language with the know-it-all, right? But this one's different. I use I language to be non-threatening. What I thought he said, what I've read on this, I've seen, and show documentation. So he's put something out there, some idea. It's a little bit on the crazy side, but and I'm going to challenge it. With this guy, with the fake know-it-all, it's different. Now I want to, for his sake, say here's what I thought on that, or I heard, or I read this, or I. That makes sense? You see the difference between how I did it here with this guy and how you do it with a real know-it-all, the guy who really knows what he's talking about. Number 5, try to give them a way out. if they painted themselves in the corner by what they've said. Oh, you probably didn't hear about, or you probably didn't hear Pastor say the other day, or you probably didn't see that one article, or you probably didn't see in the lesson that little paragraph here in the workbook that said, you know, I tried to give them a way out so they could say, oh yeah, I didn't see that. So, but again, I'm trying to help this guy, not destroy him. Try to give them a way out. Number 6, use junkologic. I always have a hard time giving an example of this. But if they've said something kind of crazy, you use junkologic. You spin off of their idea and hook it into yours to get back on track so it sounds related. Add appreciation for their part. So I take what they've said, which has got maybe a little absurd, and I tie into the absurdity by saying something somewhat absurd, but that goes back to, you know, if he said, I don't know, something like, and this is going to be the end of the world or the end of things, you know, exaggeration, talking about politics or things happening in the world, and this is going to be the end of America as we know it. Well, yeah, if it, being that it's going to be the end of America, we better get this committee work done now, huh? So I try to spin off of, you know, the exaggeration that they're using or whatever, without condemning it, I'm not trying to mock it or make fun of it, but I'm tying into it. I'm using junkologic, and but I'm bringing it back to, using that to bring it back to what we are discussing. And now let's look at number 7. One-on-one, gently confront them. This is a person, again, because they're sort of like the fox, they're very sensitive in a group setting. This one will more like you'll be able to more likely help them one-on-one than trying to do a whole lot in front of others. So this one, get together with them one-on-one and gently confront them. Praise the good in what they share and what they do, but gently point out the negative consequences of their, of their fake know-it-all behavior. Teach integrity for respect. They want respect, they want belonging, they want acceptance. This is where you say, you know, Joe, when you shared about so-and-so and said so-and-so, you know, I know you were wanting, folks to really feel like you were part of the group and belong, right? Don't feel bad about that. Done that myself, But did you know, when you do that, here's what people actually think. So I share that, and then I say something along the lines, I want to teach integrity. If you're more honest and can even say, I don't know much about that. I'd like to learn some more. I'd like to hear some more about that. People actually will give you the respect you're hoping for. You're going to get it more likely that way than faking that you know something. Now, obviously, that's going to take a one-on-one conversation. I'm going to have to establish a trust level and build a trust level so that Joe will be willing to let me say these things to him. But if you do it humbly, gently, often you can get Joe to acknowledge and see what he does. He may not even really see it a whole lot, but typically they do. They know what they're doing. But if I can help him see, use some scriptures, again, I'm not trying to beat him over the head with the Bible. I'm trying to appeal to the very thing he's looking for: belonging, acceptance, respect. But I'm going to teach him how you really get that. You don't get it from trying to impress people that you know a lot. And I got to have illustrations maybe out of my own life I can share, humble myself and share how maybe I've tried to do that too and what happened to me, those kind of things. And show them from Scripture how meekness and honesty are the values that bring people's respect. And maybe there's some illustrations you can bring from the Old Testament and or New, that show that same kind of thing. Well, that's the three characters we were looking at for session 6 here. The perfectionist, the know-it-all, the fake know-it-all. Interesting that those three are kind of grouped together. They're all very in the same arena, as far as that goes. So there is, that's session 6. We will do session 7. So having completed session 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, we'll be ready for our get together on Skype here at the end of the week. And then we have 2 more sessions for next week, 2 videos to view, which includes our final evaluation. And our last character, the procrastinator. Interesting that he's last, but we'll look at that in our next session, and then we'll do a review. So looking forward to speaking with you in person and sharing together about these things, and doing our final week here coming up. So God bless, and thank you for being part of the workshop.